Hello, chess friends, and welcome to Guijarro's chess channel, and welcome to the Magnus Carlsen Invitational Tournament in 2021. Today I decided to show another great game from the day 3. It's a game played by top grandmaster Wesley against Niels Grandelius. In my opinion, Wesley is again the favorite to win this tournament. He plays really outstanding chess. His games are so clear, his attacks are so beautiful, and in my opinion, he's the one that you don't want to face in the quarterfinal stage. Unfortunately for some Daniil Dubov fans, Daniil didn't make it to the quarterfinal stage. He played in some games really carelessly. He didn't find good ways to attack the position. So as I said, Daniil is not in the quarterfinal stage, but still we'll have, I think, such a great quarterfinal stage, and I think you don't want to meet this kind of Wesley. So Wesley is in top shape. He plays, as I said, really beautiful attacks, and it was also such a game between Wesley against the grandmaster Niels Grandelius. So let's check out now the game. It was in a Grünfeld defense, and I think for those who have trouble maybe to play against the Grünfeld themselves, this is a perfect example how you should play against it. So here d4 play by Wesley. We have knight to f6 by Niels Grandelius. We have c4, g6, knight to c3, and now d5. The main line of course, it's Grünfeld defense. C takes d5, knight to d5, e4, knight to c3, b takes c3. Okay. Let's stop and always evaluate a little bit the pawn structure, the main motifs for both sides. The main issue of blacks is, of course, the pawn-centric control that white is built here. White has a dominant position in the center. What black is hoping for is, of course, the long diagonal, bishop to g7, and the break then the position with the move c5. So the main strength of the Grünfeld defense is this long diagonal of the dark square bishop, but there are some problems. Most of the times you have this knight on f6 here. The knight on f6 is then a good protector of the king, so you already traded off the knight. So that's why you have to be always careful, because you don't have so many defenders in front of the king here from black's perspective. So here bishop to g7, knight to f3. Most of the times we're playing a more delayed situation. We're playing maybe bishop to e3, then maybe knight to e2, f3, because we could be vulnerable to some pinning ideas with the move bishop to g4 when we play the move knight to f3. Then of course this bishop is attacking the knight on f3, and the knight is of course protecting the pawn on d4. So that's why this progress of blacks is much better with the move c5. Then we're really challenging the d4 square immediately. So here after the move knight to f3, we have c5, we have rook to b1. Here Wesley is delaying a little bit the situation. He is not allowing the spinning idea, as also this bishop is protecting the b7 square. So if you try something like, I don't know, c takes d4, c takes d4, if you try maybe something like queen to a5, bishop to d2, and here after move queen to a2, okay, you have grabbed the pawn, but there are many lines, there are many games in this particular line. I think this is not such a good idea. We could go immediately play something like bishop to b5, then castling. I think you would have trouble in order to develop fast here from black's perspective. The queen gets a little bit more endangered, so as I said, you need many tempi in order to activate the queen again, and I think white can make progress with h4, h5 even immediately. So as I said, taking out the pawn is not such a powerful idea. So here after move rook to b1, Niels Grandelius played castling. We have bishop to e2, we have b6, and now castling also by Wesley. So queen to c7, also a natural and popular idea many times. The main goal is of course to take out here a natural square for white queen. The queen would of course come here to c2, then you're vulnerable to some ideas. C takes d4, c takes d4, and the queen on c2 could be hanging. And what we want to do is also support our long diagonal, because the bishop doesn't have then to come out here on this diagonal. Maybe it could be maneuvered to g4 again, and you could protect somehow the light squares with knight to c6. But okay, these are really long-term plans. Queen to c7, normal development. Here in the game, rook to e1. Here Wesley applies the principle of the last piece that hasn't played so far. So when you're developing your minor pieces, you should always bring all of your pieces into the game. You should develop all of your minor pieces, activating the rooks on the most active files. This is a normal idea in chess, so that's why as I said, Wesley Sosa's games are really instructive. They're really beautiful with great attacking motifs. So here rook to e1, Niels Grandelius plays the move knight to c6, and we have now d5. I actually like the choice of Wesley's Souls, that he didn't support the pawn immediately with the move bishop to e3. Then you would be vulnerable to some rook to d8 ideas. Then you have some trouble where to go with your queen. Knight to c6 now is challenging, of course, the pawn on d4, but here Wesley so attacks now the center, has now a space advantage which has to be noticed. And now after move knight to e5 we have c4. Taking out here the pawn is not an option. You could maybe here take out the knight, but you lose also here the rook, so it's not such a good idea, I think, to give up two minor pieces for the rook. Queen to e1 will happen, and I think from this point on white has a comfortable game. Here you could attack the dark squares. Then if you're trying to block the dark squares with bishop to c4, this bishops will be very, very dangerous. So it's not an option to give up, I think, two minor pieces for the rook here from black's perspective. So let's go back here after move d5, knight to e5, and now Wesley so cements the position here on light squares, has now a compact position, has a space advantage. And the main issue, I think, of blacks is that it's really hard to break this position with the move e6. Still, white is continuing the game after e takes d5 or c takes d5 with this advanced pawn. What the good part of Wesley's setup is that he has now the supported pass pawn. The supported pass pawn is actually a great strategy when you're going into an endgame. When you maybe reach the endgame stage, then you could have a supported pass pawn. If you could just imagine this position without minor pieces, without rooks, maybe even without the queens, then the strategical advantage of the supported pass pawn in an endgame is very, very cool. So that's why here e6, it doesn't help you out, I think, immediately. So in the game, I think here Nils Grandelius played even a worse move. He played the move f5. The best way probably for black is simplify the position, knight to f3, then bishop to f3, and then hope for the best. Maybe cement the bishop here on d4. This could be an idea. And maybe then afterwards something like e6, or if the position allows it, maybe with the move f5. But f5 is very risky immediately, because here Wesley so simply took e takes f5, and you have now some trouble because bishop to f5 happened, and now this bishop, okay, it's developed, it's very active, but again, this bishop will not stay there forever. That's the main issue, I think. You cannot lock it with e6. You could be vulnerable to some g4 ideas, so you would have then again to retreat with your bishop. So many times in the groove field, I think black has the trouble where to go with their light core bishop. Here Wesley so after the move bishop to f5 plays simply a rook to b3. Here he wants, of course, to maneuver the rook somewhere here on the third rank, maybe even if the position allows it, not immediately, but rook to d3, maybe support this supported pass pawn further, push it then maybe even further. When we get this maybe pass pawn here on the d file, it's very natural that we want to support it with pieces, with rooks. Here in the game, a rook to d8, also a natural idea here by Nils Grandelius, because he wants now finally to play the move e6 and challenging the queen here on the d file, because of course the queen is challenged indirectly, not immediately, but it could be endangered. And here bishop to b2, and again maybe knight to f3 is simply the best move here for Nils. Bishop to f3, maybe trading off the bishops, hope for the best. The problem for black is here, I think the main issue is this isolated pawn on e7. The isolated pawn can be attacked now many times. It's a long-term weakness. Again, this e6 doesn't work. We can even wait. Then bishop to d5 can happen, and then this bishop gets activated. So as I said, it's not such a great position. The evaluation is much better, but as I said, at least in this scenario we would simplify somehow the position. The position is not so complicated, but here Nils Grandelius after move bishop to b2 plays now a huge blunder, e6. And as I said, you are wanted to play this, you're trying to get this rook very active, but actually here Nils Grandelius fell into a trap by Wesley. So here Wesley has now knight to e5, bishop to e5, bishop to e5, queen to e5, bishop to f3, discovered attack. You see how important it was important for Wesley so to bring the rook on the e file, and that's actually very important, I think, when you maybe a beginner or when you started to play chess. There are really these principles: activating your pieces, activating the last piece that hasn't played so far in the game. Very important stuff. So it's, you know, it was very important to have the rook on the e file. Now the queen has to move, and now with g4 the bishop is trapped. Really wild stuff. You see how dangerous this light square bishop position can be. The bishop doesn't have good scores, and from this point on, it's already game over. Here we have b5 trying to split the pawn chain, maybe get this pawn, maybe then get two connected pawns in here in the center, but it's not a problem here. Wesley so simply takes. We have b takes e4, rook to e3, queen to f5. Now we want to, of course, attack also somehow the f2 weakness, but here Wesley so simply continues. That's what I like always about Wesley's games. He finds always good ways to activate the position further, here to get more and more attacking possibilities. After move d6, queen to f4, again maybe not the best of moves, but as I said, the evolution is already much better here for white. Here in the game, d7, protecting this pawn, supporting it by the queen, and now after rook to f7 we have bishop to c6. Here Wesley so leaves the protection of the f2, but it's not a problem because still we have king to h1. The problem is now no checks are possible. This bishop is protecting the pawn on d7, but it also protects our long diagonal, so no checks by the queen are possible. Now we can play much freely with our rooks, and also with the queen we are covering this very weak f3, so this would be maybe a drawish opportunity for black to maybe do some perpetuals, queen to f3, maybe queen to g4 and similar stuff, but it's not possible. This advanced pawn is deflecting all of these pieces by black. Here in the game c3, here Wesley simply takes. We have c2, rook to e8, again a great counter attack by Wesley, so we have king to g7 and now queen to a1 in this position. Niels Grandel is resigned. You could try maybe here king to h6, but queen to c1 is happening, and we will simply take out here the rook, and it was game over. Niels Grandel realized that, and fairly, he was very fair, he resigned the game. So as I said, I decided to show you this game because I think it was very instructive in the Grunfeld. This is a line I think you can memorize. This is a line that you can use all over in the lower because it's a natural line, bringing the pieces on the most natural squares, getting some spaces, getting your rooks on the files. Very cool game again by Wesley So. And as I said in the title, this guy you don't want to meet in the quarterfinal stage. Wesley is really in top shape. I wish him all of the best in the continuation tournament. Maybe I'm favorizing him a little bit. I'm sorry about that, but he gives me such a great pleasure when I watch him play. Even Magnus Carlsen doesn't give me so much joy because his games are different. Wesley is striking, Wesley is attacking the position immediately, and here he won this game very effectively. So okay, I hope that you enjoyed this game like I did. If you want to see more games from this tournament, check out my previous analyzed games. Here are some links, and if you want to see some more content on my YouTube channel, you can also check out my best chess games of all times, in which I bring you the best chess games that have been ever played in chess history. What to say, see you soon with some more videos, and chess is the best, of course.